This is the Gerry Callahan Show.
Well, the suspension is building. It is Tuesday, August 27th. That means 4 days until Kamala Harris comes down from her castle, Queen Kamala, and sits down for a one-on-one interview. She promised a couple of weeks ago that she would do an interview before the end of the month. We're lucky. We get to hear a candidate for president answer some questions from one of her dear friends in the media, and it's going to happen before Saturday. Actually, that's not true. She said they will announce an interview before the end of the month. So she could come out today and say, yes, I'm going to sit down with Steffi Stephanopoulos or Rachel Maddow, 3 weeks from Tuesday. She could say that. Or she could actually do an interview, which is so exciting. It's been 37 days since Kamala Harris was anointed the nominee, and she hasn't talked to anyone. No town halls, no press conferences, no interviews, even though the media is 99% in her pocket. They are there to serve her, and she will not deign to sit down and take softball interviews from one of her fluffers. It's coming, though. We got the details. Politico, which is essentially an arm of the Harris-Walz campaign, has got some insight. The latest is, and this is real, this is the campaign. Members of the Harris-Walz campaign are asking the media, asking their friends in the media, who should be the one? Who should she pick to sit down and toss her lollipops? That's the question. They haven't decided yet, but they make one thing clear. They're considering race and gender before they make a choice. And I'll just tell you the favorite for this plum assignment of getting the first interview with the first major presidential candidate to ever win the nomination without a single vote, without a single delegate, without a single primary win. That woman is going to sit down with, are you ready for this one? You got any guesses for me, Ironhead? Any guesses? I mean, I was thinking, maybe, I don't know, Sean Hannity, maybe Greg Kelly, just a show that you could handle a hostile, adversarial interview, but no. The favorite to get the interview is Gayle King.
Oh, my God.
What, was Dougie Emhoff not available? Oprah probably passed, said, you know what? I think I'm a little bit too much of a partisan. So Oprah's best friend, Gayle King, who's already endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. She's going to get the interview. And then the Kamala Harris campaign could say, see, we're not afraid. We sat down for a Q&A with our dear friend and supporter, Gayle King. I got more details on that, but that's not the biggest story. I mean, it's big, the fact that we have this unprecedented situation where a candidate will not talk, will not answer questions, allows her campaign staff to leak details of her plans, of her policies to the media, and has flip-flopped on virtually everything. Those are kind of things you'd want to answer for. You'd want someone to ask, why did you change your mind on fracking? Why are you no longer in favor of Medicare for all? Why do you want to close the border after 3.5 years of welcoming the whole world into our country over our southern border? Why did you change your mind? And we have the biggest flip-flop of all. I'm going to get to that. But we really have to start with the big story, the biggest story of the campaign so far. Not a really big deal. Just Mark Zuckerberg, one of the most powerful people in the world, admitting in a letter to Congress, to Jim Jordan, yesterday, that he rigged the 2020 election. Yes, I know you weren't allowed to say that for 3 years, or at least you weren't allowed to say it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Hell, you weren't even allowed to say it like on cable news, or you'd shout you down and call you a conspiracy theorist. But I mean, we can now say definitively that the 2020 election was rigged. Joe Biden beat Donald Trump in a rigged election. I'm not even talking about drop boxes or changing the rules or ballot harvesting or illegal aliens voting. I'm talking about the Biden-Harris administration successfully pressuring Facebook to censor. This is the most un-American, outrageous thing we've ever seen, and yet it'll be a blip. They'll cover it on Newsmax and Fox News, and we'll talk about it, but it won't be a big story. Just the election of 2020 being rigged in favor of Joe Biden and against Donald Trump by Mark Zuckerberg, who on top of censoring Americans, stopping people from expressing their First Amendment rights, also pumped $450 million into the swing states to get Biden elected. So this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, today, if we lived in a fair and just country, would be in handcuffs. There would be hearings today. They would be calling Harris and Biden and Mayorkas in front of Congress today to explain how this is not a violation of the First Amendment. This is amazing, and it's earth-shattering stuff. But again, pop that back up there for me. I get the whole story here, but here's the letter. Zuckerberg just casually writes a letter saying, yes, I bowed to the pressure. I censored Americans. I stopped people from criticizing the government or criticizing the candidate and later on the president. I even stopped satirical sites or satire. Humor was banned on Facebook under coercion from the sitting president and vice president and director of Homeland Security, pressured a social media site to stop Americans from speaking. Zuckerberg writes, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. So they banned, Babylon Bee because the Biden administration ordered them to. Expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including the COVID-related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of the pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if it happens again. This next paragraph, in a separate situation, writes Zuckerberg, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. So this is, to be clear, the FBI working with the big tech companies to undermine the president. Donald Trump was their boss at this point. He was president. They were working on behalf of the challenger, Joe Biden, to defeat the president, the FBI. How many FBI agents, how many FBI officials have been fired, arrested? None. They just rigged the election. Not a big deal. It's not like they, lied about their overtime or something. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving the Democrat presidential nominee, Joe Biden, and his family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story, also known as rigging the election. We have changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. Oh, cool. You're bad. We'll fix it next time. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. This is such a scandal when you think about it. The FBI had the laptop. They knew it was real. They knew all the contents was authentic. They knew it for over a year, and they decided to pressure big tech by lying to them and telling them it was Russian disinformation. And of course, Facebook and Twitter at the time, pre-Musk, and cable news, the media, all fell in line. And here's the dirty little secret. Every single one of them knew it was real. Everyone knew it was real. They saw the photos, the videos, the emails, the texts. They knew it wasn't Russian disinformation. They knew it was legit, but they knew it might hurt their guy, Joe Biden. So they lied and conspired to promote it, to highlight it, to advance it. It's just, and again, today, no big deal. Hey, that's old news. Old news. Can you get the Joe Scarborough video? I want to remind people what it was like in 2020 when this broke. New York Post ran the story in the fall, in October, just before the election. And these people went into overdrive and lied over every day, saying it was a Russian disinformation campaign. And every one of them knew that wasn't true. However much you hate the mainstream media, it is not enough. These are despicable scum. They really are. They are the enemy of the people. Trump was right. I'm not sure what compelled Zuckerberg to do this now, to get out ahead of this, but the examples of people working with him and lying, conspiring to advance this lie and affect the election is just, it's overwhelming. There are so many people involved in this, so many people who should have to answer for the lies they told to the American people, and they won't. They'll just move on. They'll talk about joy. Let's talk about Tim Walz's, Coach Walz's dog today or something, or Kamala Harris's, laugh and how she's a joyful warrior. They won't spend 5 minutes on this because it is a really dark period for the American media, for the intelligence community, for the tech community. They all conspired to steal an election from Trump, and they succeeded. Just for an example, listen to this piece of human garbage, Joe Scarborough, talking about the laptop. After the Post reported it, big tech suppressed it, but it was out there. It was in the New York Post, and they were afraid it might hurt their guy. And he just lies. This is we'll play a minute or so, but it's 3 minutes of Joe Scarborough and Mika, his honey, lying to you. Go ahead.
And talk about Facebook having problems and Twitter having problems with a story that even the New York Post knew was a lie. They published a series of lies peddled to them by Rudy Giuliani, who admitted that nobody else would take it but Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, because they might look into it and tell the truth. Here we are in 2020. This is what it's come down to, America. Giuliani is feeding Russian misinformation to Donald Trump and feeding Russian disinformation to the New York Post. They know it's a lie.
Yeah, well,
that's where we are in 2020.
The New York Post
just to let you know that they're still talking to Russians. And by the way, Russian hoax, come on. Really, seriously, history will expose you all as fools and useful idiots for the Russians. It's for 4 years now.
History will expose you as useful idiots. That is Joe Scarborough. That is the ultimate deflection. And today, Joe Scarborough's on the air with his honey, and they're just telling you whatever, how great Kamala is, how evil Trump is, and there's no price to pay. There's no consequences. Imagine today, I know we do this all the time, it can be tedious. Today, the big story is Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg says Donald Trump and his allies pressured them to censor a criticism of Trump and take down posts critical of Trump, including satirical posts that they convinced Facebook, the FBI, convinced Facebook and Twitter and Instagram that any negative story about Trump was a lie in a Russian operation. Imagine how big that story would be today. Imagine if that we just heard, if that were Sean Hannity or any, whatever, Rob Schmidt, and they said that 4 years ago, their career would be over. They'd be laughingstock. They'd be cartoon characters. But Scarborough just goes on his day, making whatever he made, $15 million a year. This is Joe Biden's favorite show, by the way. He watches Joe and Mika every morning. That's where he gets his ideas and inspiration. I'm sure Kamala Harris loves them too. And there's just no price to pay for this scandal, for lying, for violating people's First Amendment rights. Here's a couple other things about this. You want to know the number of posts, COVID-related posts they removed from Facebook? 18 million. They censored, suppressed, banned doctors like Robert Malone and Jay Bhattacharya, these respected doctors who were right, about the origins of COVID, who were right about the vaccine. They took down 18 million posts. Jen Psaki was asked about that. You know what her answer was? It's not enough. It's not enough. They have to do more to stop Americans from speaking, to stop doctors from telling the truth, because it would hurt the narrative. It would hurt their guy. Not enough that they took down 18 million posts, most of which were correct about the vax and about masks and about school closures and about shutdowns. They wouldn't let you speak. And today, Zuckerberg admits it, and no one gives a damn. No one is even, there's not even talk about arresting people, which is what they should do. You lie under oath. You violate someone's First Amendment rights. There should be a price to pay. Can you get the Mayorkas cut? Because this is incredible. This will get no coverage again. This, no big deal. Just the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, a cabinet member, he's impeached, he's disgraced, he's a piece of garbage too. But he's under oath getting questioned by Josh Hawley, and he just flat out lies. Now, there are Trump allies who've gone to prison. I mean, Steve Bannon's in prison now. Peter Navarro just got out of prison for ignoring a subpoena, which, you can do if you're a Democrat. But this is perjury. This is lying under oath. And today, there'll be no talk about arresting, prosecuting Mayorkas, who is just, he's evil. He's an evil man. Watch him just casually, comfortably lie to Hawley under oath. Go ahead.
Now, you said earlier this year that you disbanded the Disinformation Governance Board, which I thought was totally unconstitutional, but that turns out to be, at best, misleading. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're doing. Your own quadrennial review, which was just reported in the press, says that disinformation is going to be the new focus at DHS. The Quad Review says that DHS plans to target, I'm quoting now, inaccurate information domestically on a wide array of subjects, including, quoting, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the nature of U.S. support for Ukraine. A federal judge has just found, as a finding of fact, Mr. Secretary, that your office, and I'm going to quote now, is supervising the nerve center of federally directed censorship. Here's another email, August 20th, 2021. Facebook writes again to HHS and highlights that Facebook is increasing the strength of our demotions for COVID and vaccine-related content. April 16th, 2021, Rob Flaherty at the White House circulates a Zoom meeting invitation to Twitter employees stating White House staff will be briefed by Twitter on vaccine misinformation. We have example after example of this administration coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
You are not pressuring the big tech companies to take down accounts. You are not meeting with them to ask them to censor on your behalf.
That is correct. We are not.
Mr. Secretary, it has been established for years in this country, as you very well know because you're a lawyer, that the federal government may not use private third parties to engage in activities that are unconstitutional. That's exactly what you and this administration are doing. You are leveraging private companies to carry out censorship on your behalf. It's dystopian, but worse than that, it's unconstitutional.
It's also false.
It's also false. He just lied under oath. I mean, Zuckerberg proved it. We have the receipts. And he just sits there smiling. No, it's false. Unequivocally, categorically false. Why isn't he being prosecuted? Why isn't he arrested today? Why is this two-tier justice system just never ending? Now the Harris-Walz campaign has a problem. Twitter is a place for free speech now. Musk saved it. And now Zuckerberg is promising to stay out of the election. He says this time they're going to remain neutral. Last time, the election, as we know, was decided by 45,000 votes in 3 swing states. The suppression of the laptop, the censorship of criticism of Biden absolutely swung the election. There's no question about it. There's not even debatable. And they needed it. They needed it to win, and they won. They don't have that advantage this time. They have the media, obviously, completely in the tank, as we will show you yet again. But they don't have big tech. They don't have Zuckerberg, I don't think. He might be lying to us, and they don't have Twitter this time, and that is a problem. They know Kamala Harris's policies are so unpopular and out of the mainstream. They need censorship. As Robert Kennedy explained yesterday, the first thing Biden did was censor Robert Kennedy Jr., and then they went from there and censored millions of Americans who criticized the regime. It's the most un-American thing, and the media has no problem with it because they were helping their guy. All right, we got to get to the biggest flip-flop, the funniest flip-flop yet from Kamala Harris. Oh, and we have another flip-flop. She wants to change the debate rules after insisting they use the same rules they used when Joe Biden imploded in June. They were going to do that for the September 10th debate. Now, Harris, her team, they're not so sure. I think somebody is running scared here. We'll tell you all about that and more. But first,
excuse me.
As we know, Kamala Harris has essentially flip-flopped on everything so far. Although she hasn't said it herself. Her surrogates in the media and her campaign staff have leaked out things. She's not really against fracking anymore. No, she's not. She's not against private health insurance. She doesn't want to give illegal aliens Medicare. That was then. That was 4 years ago. This is different now. And she wants to close the border. Yes, she's the border hawk. Well, check this out. Quietly, as they do everything, quietly through their surrogates and the media. Is this Politico? Let me get the story. This is almost too much to believe. Kamala Harris now favors a border wall. Yes. An evil, racist, xenophobic symbol of Trump's tyrannical reign and administration is now part of Kamala Harris's agenda to build the Trump border, to finish the Trump border wall. You don't believe me? We got Jonathan Karl. He's Jonathan Karl, who again is a devout Kamala Harris supporter, who is essentially a surrogate of Kamala Harris. Even Jonathan Karl is watching her. She has commercials, ads. In the ads is Trump's wall. In the ads for Kamala Harris against Donald Trump, they feature the wall. Listen to this.
But if you take a look at that ad, and one thing that I found striking is if you look, and I think we have the images here, there are at least 3 points in that ad that show the border wall, Donald Trump's border wall. Is it now the position of the Democrats that they favor the border wall?
Yes, it is. Even Karl is like, really? They put it in the ads and claim she's the border hawk? This is Axios, again, just a far left outlet for Harris, pro-Harris propaganda. Usually, this is Axios today if she's elected president, Kamala Harris pledges to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the wall along the southern border, a project she once opposed and called un-American during the Trump administration. It's the latest example of Harris flip-flopping on her past liberal positions, such as supporting Medicare for all and banning fracking, proposals that aides say she now is against. She supports this bipartisan border bill, the Jim Langford, Chris Murphy bullshit bill that didn't close the border, which includes the wall. Quote, it requires the Trump border wall. It is in the bill, and it sets the standards that were set during the Trump administration. So Kamala Harris supports Trump's border wall. Now we know, I guess every day we know, we have more examples of why she's running scared, why she's hiding, why she doesn't take questions, why she won't do a press conference. Because even, I don't know about Gayle King, but even Jonathan Karl or Steffi would have to ask, Madam Vice President, ma'am, could you please tell us why you now support Trump's border wall? And they could get to, her past comments, which she called it racist, a vanity project. Do we have Kamala Harris back when she used to actually answer questions occasionally, when she was running for president, when she wasn't anointed the candidate, when she was actually trying to earn the nomination? She appeared on The View, which I still think there's a good shot. Her first interview is with The View. She's not going to get a friendlier audience than that. But she appeared on The View when she was a senator and talked about Trump's border wall. And this woman now features the wall in ads. By the way, this doesn't get any coverage. Trump wanted $10 billion to finish the wall. Congress said no. We have spent in the last year more than $450 billion housing, feeding, caring for illegal aliens. $10 billion for a wall was too much. $450 billion. That's no big deal. Listen to Kamala Harris talk about Trump's border wall 4 years ago.
This issue is about a vanity project for this president.
Right.
And it is a problem of his own making.
Right.
And listen, when I travel this country, folks have plenty enough problems that they need their president to focus on.
You know what?
Instead of a wall that, by the way, because I was a prosecutor for many years, including the Attorney General of California, I specialize on transnational criminal organizations.
Yeah.
That wall ain't gonna stop them.
No.
What the hell is she laughing about? What is she laughing? She is just embarrassing. They can't put her in front of a camera. Well, they know that, obviously. They need to control everything. They can't allow that person to go out there and explain her flip-flops. They have a real dilemma here. They have 70 days, 10 weeks from today. They have 10 weeks to hide her, to lie to the public, to pretend she's fit for office, to pretend she's not an absolute clown in front of the camera. That person right there can't do it. She can't do what candidates do, which is answer questions. This is unprecedented in American history. You can go back and look. There's no candidate who's ever avoided the media completely, and certainly no candidate who ever got the nomination without a single vote. And she can't do it. She can't go in front of the camera and explain why she now believes in a wall, or why she now believes in fracking, or why she now wants to close the border, or not give illegal aliens Medicare. Those are good questions. Even her stooges, her handmaidens in the media will be forced to ask at least some of the questions, and she can't do it. Ma'am, tell us, what changed? What changed? Why do you like the wall, Trump's wall? And it has to come up in a debate. I know they're going to get to, race and January 6th, and they're going to talk about, Trump being a threat to democracy and talk about abortion. But eventually they have to get to the border and the wall and their flip-flops. And that's why they want to change the rules. We'll tell you about that. This is unbelievable. And Trump has, he can't give in on this. He can't agree to to her new rules. He just can't. We'll get to that more, but first.
Excuse me.
One second. Good.
Hey, did you hear the latest about this little man right here? This little guy, the evil elf, Anthony Fauci, has West Nile virus and he's recovering. He was hospitalized, got a mosquito bite, and was suffering from West Nile virus. All I could say is, if there's any justice, he will have no visitors allowed. No one. You can Zoom with your kids and grandkids, Fauci. Or maybe your wife can come to the window and knock on the window and wave to you. And you must suffer alone, because those are the rules. Those are the rules you made. And by the way, speaking of Fauci, Jordan Schachtel, who's a really good follow on Twitter, and he's got a good Substack page, he points out they took Secret Service away from RFK Jr. as soon as he left the race. Fauci still has a whole team of Secret Service agents and a driver. This scoundrel, this scumbag, has taxpayers are paying for his team of Secret Service agents, bodyguards, armed bodyguards, and a driver. And he's 83 and he's made tens of millions of dollars from Big Pharma, but it's not enough. God, hopefully, I think he's recovered. He's home, but hopefully, he had to suffer a little under his measures and didn't get to. Maybe no one wants to visit him anyway. But all right, let's get to this. New rules, says Kamala Harris. This is incredible too. I know I keep saying that, but the way we have changed the rules and the norms and the traditions to accommodate Queen Kamala, who is, again, she got no votes. If she had to run in a primary, she would lose, just like she did last time. She was nobody's favorite choice. There were calls in the spring from mainstream media outlets for her to drop off the ticket because she was a drag on Joe Biden. She was an historically unpopular VP with a 28% approval rating. And now they're changing all the rules. We don't have to do interviews. We don't have to do press conferences. We don't have to do 3 debates. We certainly can't do a debate on Fox News. No, the debate on ABC, one of the women at ABC who's running it is one of her best friends who's donated to her since her early days in California. And one of the hosts is the woman that grilled Trump at that black journalist event who hates Trump. She's going to be one of the moderators. So the whole thing is rigged, but not enough. It's never enough to accommodate Kamala. She insisted they keep the same rules, same date, same network that they agreed to when he was going to debate Biden. And Trump reluctantly finally gave in because Trump thinks he's the greatest debater and he doesn't care what the rules are. So it's all set. September 10th, 2 weeks. They're going to do it with a mute button, standing up, no notes, just like they did in June. Well, the Kamala Harris team comes out yesterday and says, nope, new rules. She wants to sit down and have notes. Now, I've seen lots of debates. I don't remember any where they have notes, where they can bring a script on or bullet points onto the stage and keep referring to their notes. Again, unprecedented accommodations for Queen Kamala. Is this again is Politico? These are stories coming right from the Kamala Harris campaign. They want no mute button so that Trump will interrupt her because they think their finest moment in 2020 when she debated Mike Pence is when he interrupted. And by the way, he barely interrupted her and she would go, I'm speaking. They want to appeal to women by showing Trump is trying to bully a woman. So they decide yesterday to insist no mute button. And by the way, why would Trump ever agree to this? I know, again, he agreed to all the rules set down by the Biden team in June, and it worked out great. And I know he's cocky and he's confident and he thinks he's going to destroy her, but they've done this. They've practiced. They've done focus groups. They've studied it and decided that she needs notes and she needs to sit down. And they don't want a mute button. Trump has to stand strong here. He has to dig in his heels. He cannot give in. He cannot acquiesce to this, but it is clearly an attempt to protect her. He makes me nervous, though. Here he is asked about it yesterday, and he sounds like he'll just go along with anything. Listen.
President Trump, would you want the microphones muted in the debate whenever you're not speaking?
We agreed to the same rules. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on, but the agreement was that it would be the same as it was last time. In that case, it was muted. I didn't like it the last time, but it worked out fine. I mean, ask Biden how it worked out. It was fine. And I think it should be the same. We agreed to the same rules and same specifications. And I think that's probably what it should be. But they're trying to change it. The truth is they're trying to get out of it because she doesn't want to debate. She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate.
He's right again about that. She doesn't want to debate. I think they're scared. And obviously they know the media will carry their water and say Trump's trying to change the rules. They'll just flat out lie. But she wants out. They've again practiced, studied it, thought about it, and said, a woman who's afraid to sit down with The View right now, who's afraid to sit down with Steffi Stephanopoulos, must be scared to death at the prospect of going toe-to-toe with Trump, even though the moderators will do everything in their power, the network will do everything in their power to help her. They're thinking they have a lead in the polls. They're leading in the swing states. They have a lead in some of the swing states. Some are toss-ups. But with the help of the media and her surrogates, she has transformed into a legitimate candidate who's leading who has a real chance to win the White House, which is a shame, which is a disgrace that they're allowing this to happen. But the question is, how can she screw it up? Obviously, she could screw it up by holding a press conference because she sucks at that, or doing a hostile interview, which she'll never do. They're going to do a friendly interview with Gayle King, and then the media will say she's great, she handled it great, she looks presidential. The only thing that can derail her now is a bad debate performance, and there's a good chance if she can't rig the thing that she will struggle. Again, any candidate who's flip-flopped on every major issue is going to struggle if they're asked real questions. And if you're Kamala Harris, who is not a smart person, Trump's right, and not a good debater, and not an appealing person, I mean, she grates on you. It's just the laugh, the giggle, the histrionics, the hands. I mean, it's just, she's not going to come across very presidential or likable if the thing is on the level. So she has to do whatever it takes to rig it. And I don't know what happens if Trump says, no, we have the rules. We agree to the rules. I mean, she's only agreed to one debate. That never happens. You can't have just one debate. You're supposed to have three. It's kind of a tradition. But again, tradition goes out the window because we have to stop Trump. I have to do this story because it's so funny. I told you, I already gave away the lead, but the suspense among the media is hilarious when it comes to this interview with Kamala Harris, which is supposed to happen again before the end of the month, which is 4 days away. This is from Politico, again, an arm of the Harris campaign. Everything they write comes from the Harris campaign. It's kind of the go-to source if you want to know what they're thinking, what they're planning. You go to Politico Playbook. It says VP Harris plans for a sit-down interview. She just formally secured the nomination, and she's facing pressure to answer questions about her candidacy. She said the other day, I've talked to my team. We're going to do an interview before the end of the month. I'm sorry, we're going to schedule an interview before the end of the month, she said. And they point that out. She might announce it, 2 weeks from Thursday. The Harris campaign, this is unbelievable. The Harris campaign has been asking reporters who they think she should talk to. Behind the scenes, TV producers from big name anchors have been calling the campaign to pitch their talent as the person she has to do it with. Harris has had a light schedule since accepting the nomination, and several sources said she's been using the time to prepare for the debate and to map out media strategy for the next few weeks. So they go through all the possibilities of who she might. They talk about all her team and who their connections would be in the media. And one woman says, Ashley Etienne, former Harris communications advisor, said Gayle King is the choice. Who else is in the running? The universe of reporters in the mix for this interview is relatively small, especially if the Harris campaign is set on making a TV network event. David Muir has the highest ratings. I didn't even know that. Is co-monitoring the debate. So he's a possibility. Like next week, do an interview with David Muir, who the week after would be moderating the debate. Why am I not surprised? CBS's Nora O'Donnell and NBC's Lester Holt are also mentioned. Savannah Guthrie, Dana Bash, and Jake Tapper. But check this out. It says, Politico writes, almost everyone we talked to said Harris will consider race and gender in making her choice, and that she would be keen to sit down with a black and or female reporter, although they don't believe that's a requirement. She's also considering, and this is the most likely, having Tim Walz join her, so she won't do it alone. She'll need Tim Walz there to lean on. But I like the choice. I mean, I should say I like the choice. I expect the choice to be Gayle King, maybe Lester Holt, but she's considering race and gender, which means some of her biggest fans, Jonathan Karl and Jonathan Karl and George Stephanopoulos and David Muir, they're out because they have penises and they're white, so they're out. This is going to be comical, Ironhead. When she sits down with Gayle King or Savannah Guthrie, it's just going to be such a joke. They're just going to suck her toes and lick her up and down. It's going to be disgusting. Oh, good. Yeah, we got to get to this. I want to get to the latest Tim Walz lie. I mean, every day. It's a feature of our program, the latest Tim Walz lie. But the reaction to RFK Jr. is bizarre. And I know we talked about the Kennedy family, those mutants, those backstabbing snakes in his family who turned on him because he wouldn't support the guy who tried to destroy him. They wanted him to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who sued him, who took him off ballots, who censored him, who we'll get to this, who called up everybody he's ever known looking for dirt on him. They were so slimy in their attempt to destroy the man. He was never going to support them. I mean, I know they don't like Trump, but why would RFK Jr. ever support Joe Biden? In fact, why would RFK Jr.'s family, his sister, support Joe Biden or Kamala Harris after they found out what Harris and Biden tried to do to him? This is incredible. He sat down with Tucker Carlson and explains they called up a guy who he was in AA with 40 years ago looking for dirt. Again, this isn't the media. I understand the media. They hate him too because he's a threat to Biden, was a threat to Biden, now Harris. But the campaign, the Biden campaign, Harris campaign, reached out to someone who was in his AA group 40 years ago in their attempt to destroy the man. It's just, these people are just beneath contempt. They are just vile. Listen to this.
President Trump and the RNC did nothing to prevent me from being on the ballots. They didn't have a big major organization sending private eyes out. You know, the Democratic Party was interviewing literally everybody I've ever met in 70 years to collect dirt on me. I got a call.
They've been doing that, I know for a fact, for over a year, as you know.
Yeah, and they were open about it. This is what we're going to do. So they put a person in charge of it named Liz Smith, who's, that's the kind of person she is. This is what she does. She does negative research on people and tries to character assess.
Liz Smith, Elliot Spitzer's old girlfriend?
Yes.
Oh.
And she was in charge of that team. And then there was other people as well. Mary Beth Cahill had been my uncle, Teddy's chief of staff, who I knew. And Liz Smith was in charge of the negative research, what they call negative research, euphemistically. And I got calls from, for example, a guy that I met at an AA meeting 40 years ago. And he received a call. Most of my family members received calls, contacts, either text or telephone calls from people who said, I'm doing intelligence for the DNC, and, we'd like to talk to you about Robert Kennedy, and if you have any negative information about him. So I was getting that,
What could possibly be the justification for that?
Well, they didn't want me running, and that's the thing, is it's not democratic. It wasn't,
That's such a mafia tactic.
Yeah. So, but the point is, it was weird. It was not smart because I was actually helping the Democrats. And if they just let me stay in and they didn't run this campaign up against me, they probably would win this election.
Think of that. These are the vanguards of democracy. People tell you Trump's a threat to democracy. He's a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat who just wanted to run. You get the signatures, you get the volunteers, you get the staff. He raised money, said, I'm going to run. They wouldn't let him run. They wouldn't let him, wouldn't allow him on the ballot. They protected a cadaver, Joe Biden. And when Joe Biden, when we learned the truth that he was senile, they protected Kamala Harris and tried to destroy the man. He said he spent $10 million on legal fees fighting to stay on the ballots, fighting to just have his name on the ballot. And the Democrats, the DNC, and he's right. I said at the beginning, I thought he would hurt Trump more than Biden. Maybe that wasn't true in the end. Maybe it was. We don't know. We'll never know. But his family members, his slimy sister and his nephews and his children, they're expecting him to throw his support behind the guy who called people that he knew 40, 50 years ago, that pushed the story that he was selling drugs when he was at Harvard 50 years ago. These people are just disgusting. They really are. That is your Democrat Party today. Do not allow people to choose their candidate. Stop a man like this, a Kennedy, from appearing on the ballot. Don't give him a choice. We have chosen this cabal of overlords led by Barack Obama. They've chosen their candidate, and there will be no challenges allowed. I hope he's out there on the campaign trail just kicking ass, because so far, so good. He's going to be a good surrogate for Trump, and I hope he pulls just enough away from Harris and on election day or the next day or inauguration day says, hey, you blew it. You could have let me stay on the ballot and you might have won. But no, they can't have anybody challenge their chosen, selected, anointed candidate. All right, quickly, before we go, Ironhead, daily feature. What is Tim Walz lying about today? This is from the Daily Wire.
Oh, that's an easy one. It's how much he brushes his teeth, I think.
No, bad guess. As Tim Walz comes under fire for making misleading claims about his military service, IVF treatments, and drunk driving, it seems the vice presidential nominee has also made dubious claims about winning teaching awards. A Daily Wire review found several claims that Walz, former high school teacher, won either one of 2 Minnesota Teacher of the Year awards. In reality, he won no such award. He just put it in his bio that he was named Teacher of the Year in Minnesota. A lie. It didn't happen. That is today's Tim Walz lie. There is nothing about, I'm starting to doubt he ever served in the National Guard. Maybe he wasn't even a teacher. We know he's made 30 trips to China. We know he loves China, but I think that's true. But he loves to just embellish his resume to advance his political career, and hopefully, I trust J.D. Vance is going to bring up at least some of the big lies he's told when those two square off.
I'm starting to think he was selected just to be the fall guy. So when Kamala inevitably loses, they blame him.
That could be it. Or, I think the best explanation is that she didn't want to be overshadowed. She thought Josh Shapiro was too dynamic and would overshadow her. And plus, he's Jewish. They can't have that. So she picked him because he promised. He's just an old, fat, 60-year-old nobody from Minnesota that he wouldn't overshadow her. Kind of like, picking Joe Biden if you're Barack Obama, or picking Dan Quayle if you're George Bush. You pick a good soldier. Just stay in the background and do what you got to do. But they couldn't have vetted him, certainly not thoroughly, because if they knew what a fraud, what a liar he was, I'm sure he wouldn't have been the choice. But they got to live with it now, and we're here for it. Just keep them coming, everybody. Keep the stories coming. We're not done with Tim Walz. As I've said, there is some serious skeletons in his closet, and the China thing is big. Just you wait. But that will be, we'll be doing that another day, I'm sure. But that will do it for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Arden. I'm Jerry Callahan.